When we decided to spend a year in France, we pictured a big city, walking everywhere, bakeries on the corners, markets, museums. I'd never thought about living in New York, but maybe a little bit like New York, but French.
Yeah, maybe a little French New York. But what we didn't picture was ending up in a commune of 500 people out in the French countryside, somewhere we had never even visited before.
Nope. This is the story of how we accidentally moved to a rural French village and why it turned out to be exactly the right place. Yeah. Hi, I'm Raina.
I'm Jason.
We are Baguette Bound. We talk about moving, adjusting, and enjoying life in France.
So, some of you know that we originally planned to come to France for just a one-year sabbatical. Our daughter had just finished elementary school in the US, and since that absolutely no one has ever said, oh yeah, my 6th grade middle school year, that was the best year of my life. So we thought that if we were going to take a year as a family to go out and see the world and travel, this was our moment to do it.
We thought, okay, 11, she's old enough to remember and young enough, she still wants to hang out with us.
We're still pretty cool.
Yeah. This is a sweet spot.
It was. So we've been saving money to do this for several years, and we knew that Raina could get a self-employment visa here in France to keep her company running during our year here in France.
So at this point, we had only been to Paris for a few days back in our 20s, along with a quick day trip out to the Loire Valley for a wine tasting. We loved all of it, but that was it. That was our French experience up to this point.
So when we were thinking of this, our first question was, where would our home base be in France? And initially, we pictured a big city as this plan first started to take shape in our minds. And I was definitely imagining a walkable, car-free life somewhere in the urban core of some major French city. I grew up in the urban center of Houston, and while it's a great city, it is definitely not walkable. Maybe the least walkable city in the US.
No, and it's scary to ride a bike.
Yeah. And I really wanted to experience just going to walk outside, going out for bread, going out for butter, going out for fruit, just walking to a cafe to have coffee every day.
And historically, most Americans who move to France choose Paris. I think that's what most Americans have seen our whole lives as France.
That is France.
Yes.
But we ruled out Paris pretty quickly, in our initial planning. While we love the city, actually living there can be really expensive, and the weather is not ideal. It's not our favorite. We wanted to travel a lot that year in France, and while Paris is really well connected to Europe, our travel budget might be eaten up completely if we were spending too much on housing.
Yeah.
So we considered a lot of other cities, and we eventually landed on Bordeaux. Bordeaux felt like a great, perfect mix of everything we were looking for. The city's beautiful. There's tons of history and culture and restaurants. The weather is pretty nice most of the year, and it's more affordable than Paris.
Then we started trying to find housing. So in our situation, we were coming for a short time. We didn't have French jobs. So it just made more sense, and it was easier to start looking for short-term rentals like Airbnb. But as we started to do that, it turned out to be incredibly hard to find a place for several months in Bordeaux that checked the next 3 boxes, which had some sort of private space for me to work and see clients in, was in the budget, and was both furnished and would take our cat. We just couldn't find anything that checked all of the boxes. It seemed like it was like if it had office space, they wouldn't take the cat. If it was both, it was $1 million.
So with that problem, just like in the US, when you can't find something affordable somewhere near the city center, you just keep going further out. My experience in Houston told me that if you just drive for 60 minutes from downtown, you are still out in the Houston suburbs. You're still a Houstonian way out there.
Yeah, hello urban sprawl.
Yeah. So I think our naive, unknowing American brains thought it would be somewhat similar here in France. 45 minutes outside of the Bordeaux city center, you're basically still in Bordeaux.
French viewers, do not laugh at us. This is just like...
How would we know?
Right.
Yeah. So, we started following the train lines, looking out on each one, and looking for rentals in the towns that the train went through. And that's how we found a rental in the commune of Ennes. Ennes is a really small commune just outside the town of Saint-Foy-le-Grand, which is about 50 minutes east of Bordeaux by train. So at this point we thought, and I don't know how we screwed this up, or mixed everything up at this point, but we thought that Ennes was maybe a 10-minute walk from the train station in Saint-Foy-le-Grand. So we thought, we are still going to get this walkable life just out in the French suburbs of Bordeaux.
We were wrong. I think
not even close.
No,
Yeah.
this is one of the beautiful things actually, is outside of a lot of fringe towns, if you're looking, there isn't the same urban sprawl. So you can be outside of town and feel as if you are living in a whole different place
Light
pretty
years
quickly.
away.
But it was a classic mistake. You use the frame of reference from your home country and assume things will work the same way in your new one. This was just a totally newbie mistake.
Yeah, how would we know? But so after arriving in France, we spent our 10 days in Bordeaux, and then we drove out to Ines. And it was a beautiful drive. We were so impressed. We drove through the vineyards and plum orchards, tiny little villages, lots of little bridge crossings, and we slowly realized we are not in Bordeaux. We're not in the suburbs of Bordeaux. We are nowhere close. We have left that behind a long time ago.
Yeah, we're not in Kansas anymore.
Yeah, it's a completely different world. And Ines itself was a neat, clean, 500-person commune, surrounded by chateaus and vineyards, right down on the banks of the Dordogne River. It was really pretty. There's a little wine bar, a post office. We love the mail lady in the post office in Ines. If you're still there,
She was great.
you're doing an awesome job. There's a small library in town. There's a famous baguette machine.
Yes.
We were so
it was a
enamored
highlight.
with after we arrived. It was amazing. We walked down there all the time. Plus, it had a small Sunday morning market every week. But this was not a suburb.
No.
This was a tiny rural wine-growing commune out on its own. It was not associated with Bordeaux at all.
Yeah, most of our neighbors were actually winemakers. So, but the rental when we got there, oh my gosh. So despite our shock of how far removed we were from the city, the rental was exactly what you imagine a
beautiful.
shabby, chic, French countryside house to be. Exposed beams, stone walls, beautiful French doors leading to the garden, which I suppose they just call doors here.
Grits, our cat, he loved it. We called it his
Yeah.
French retirement home. He was so happy out hunting, exploring out in the little courtyard every morning. I think he almost caught something one day. His retirement was
Questionable, but
But when we were there, pretty quickly we realized that there were some issues there. I mean, first, like the internet router, it was installed in an open area of the house. It had high-speed internet, but Raina's office was way in the back, and the signal didn't travel through the stone walls.
yeah.
The download speeds were fine, but the upload speeds were terrible, which meant there was lots of lagging and dropped video calls. This was super, super stressful for her those first few weeks trying to get set up and things restarted.
Yeah.
Until we were able to kind of find a solution for that.
Yeah,
So, word of the wise, if you're thinking of working remotely here in France, make sure you figure out both the downloads and the upload speeds of the place that you're going to be at.
Yeah, and then in the house, as it got cooler, we realized that the house wasn't actually winterized. It was owned by a very nice English family who came in the summer, which is why it worked out great for them to rent to us during the off-season school year. But I mean, the place had single pane windows, no insulation, these stone walls, but they were cold, beautiful high ceilings, which is where all the heat from the radiators went.
So we got deeper into winter. Our cat Grits, he'd just sit on his little chair next to the radiator all day long, and he'd only
Huddle
move
there.
when it was dinner time.
I know. Hey.
At points, the owner was complaining that the heating was costing him 500, 600 euros a month to keep it running, and we were actually trying to help by wearing gloves inside, keeping the temperature at like 60 degrees.
Yeah.
I mean,
we had the
felt
little
bad about
fingerless
this,
gloves
but-
to still tie.
Oh, it was miserable some days in January.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then while walking in the vineyards around the house was one of my favorite things to do that year.
It was so pretty.
It was just beautiful, like the seasons, and our neighbors' gardens were incredible. But it turned out that our hope of walking into Saint-Foy-le-Grand to the train station or for coffee, or they have an incredible Saturday morning market at
one of the best.
Saint-Foy-le-Grand.
One
Yes.
of the best. Yeah.
But it was like this busy, narrow country road that it didn't feel safe to walk on, and it was way further than we had originally thought.
Yeah.
So in the end, it meant we were driving for everything except for the baguette machine.
Except for the baguette
So it kind of turned out to be the opposite of one of the main things we had been imagining for this year.
There was definitely days during those first few months that we would look at each other and be like, how in the world did we end up here? What are we doing?
Tiny commune in rural France.
Even a lot of the locals there would ask, they seem surprised when they say, what are you doing in NS France? Do you have a relative, someone that used to live here, something? Why are you here?
Yeah, they all thought we had a long lost relative. And then they would tell us, but Paul Revere's family is from NS.
Yeah, everyone loved telling us that story. I think we
American
heard that from
connection
literally everyone in town.
was cute.
Paul Revere lived down. Yeah, I know.
Anyway.
Yeah. And all that said, as we started to settle in, we did start adjusting to the rhythm of the place and the area. You can really feel the seasons change in a way that we didn't in the US. People notice that you're there. People immediately invited us to a village meal, even though they knew that we were just renting through an Airbnb and may not be there long term. That was so thoughtful.
Yeah. And things like the caretaker of the house, Daniel,
He was fantastic. Yeah.
he speaks zero English.
It was so much fun.
And he has one of the strongest Southwest accents imaginable. But he was like probably our first local contact, and he was just so kind to us, even though we understood almost nothing. Although we did quickly learn that French gesture. He would come to try and fix something. It was like, he would like, I can't do it. I can't do the French. We're like, we know what that means.
We got a lot of that first year.
So, what we started to realize is, small places like this, the neighbors notice things.
Yeah.
And when you are a foreigner who knows no one, like these small kindnesses mean everything. I think the best example of this was Juliana's 12th birthday. We were hosting her birthday party, and we had all these things planned to do in the yard. The main yard for our house was actually across the street from us and all of our neighbors, which is pretty common in some of these villages. The little vegetable garden will be...
Yeah, the roads get cut in much later after the yards are done. But so shortly before the day of the birthday party, Daniel, I guess, had hurt his back and he couldn't mow, so the grass was getting pretty tall. We didn't have a mower, and since it was an Airbnb, there was no way I was going to go out and buy one. No. But as caring parents, we had to figure out a way to have this birthday party out in the garden with waist-high grass.
It was not waist-high.
It was pretty high.
It was bad. It was bad.
So we had to do what we had to do, and we had to use the tools that we had. So we were out there cutting grass with big scissors.
Not making this up. It feels pretty silly saying now, but it's true.
At some point, after a long effort out in the summer sun, cutting the grass with scissors, we went inside for a break because I'll tell you, it is exhausting to try to mow an entire yard with scissors. We hear a knock at the door.
Yeah.
We go up, and it's our neighbor, our next door neighbor. And over the first few months that we had been there, we'd exchanged lots of greetings. We were on friendly terms, but because our French wasn't just terrible, it was kind of non-existent at the beginning, we hadn't really bonded or become close friends in any way.
Yeah.
So he's at the door, and after a long back and forth, trying to figure out what he's telling us, is he asking us something? Is he wanting something? I don't know. But we finally realized that he was offering to mow the yard for the birthday party that he knew was happening, and he could obviously see us attempting to pull off. And it was shocking in the moment when he did this. He barely knows us, and we would be gone in a few weeks or a month. But at the time, he saw something he could help with. He saw something that needed to be done, and he felt compelled to actually take action and do it. It was amazing.
Even talking about it now, it's still making me tear up because I just thought, what incredible kindness. And I feel like this is the whole idea of fraternity in action, that everyone's in this together to take care of each other. And that was one of those moments that I felt that way. And I felt like there was no reason for someone to treat me in that way when I'm kind of a foreigner passing through. And I was just incredibly impressed by the gesture.
And I'm sure that there are places and neighbors who are maybe less friendly and less willing to pitch in. I don't doubt that. And we feel very lucky to have landed here kind of in the heart of chocolatine country where all the people seem so warm and so welcoming. We feel very lucky to be in this place. But still, here we are, we're driving everywhere. We're living in a small commune in rural France. This was not at all what we had imagined our French life would be like. Not one bit.
No. But I think what started to change is we started to realize that everything felt a little more personal in the countryside. And we found that made it easier to start to find connections in the local community. And again, I don't think rural living or village life is for everyone. But I don't know if we would have had that same experience in the anonymity of that the large cities can be.
Yeah, I think as soon as we got here, Juliana made a few new friends at school in her first few weeks, and very quickly, some of the parents of those friends reached out to us as newcomers to the country to make sure that we were settling in okay, and we kind of knew what we were doing. And
we did not.
We had no idea. Yeah. And to this day,
Marianne.
those people still remain some of our closest friends here in France. And after a few visits to the pharmacy to fill some of my prescriptions, since I'm diabetic, the pharmacist started to keep the medications that I needed in stock so they could have them for me when I came in. That just felt warm and welcoming. I was I was finding my place.
Yeah. And there also turned out to be a lot more going on than I had imagined there would be out in the countryside. But it looked different, right? Instead of museums and ballets, it's village fetes, it's rugby games between village teams with the supporter lunches before. It's the old age French traditions that change with the seasons. Like there's one in the spring where you gather in the center of town and you eat omelets together made with the first spring onions, along with a glass of local white wine for good health. Or even the newer traditions like the lighted tractor parade at Christmas, which is so much fun.
That was so cool.
We met friends at a bar down in the square and watched all the tractors come, and it was just great fun.
I think it isn't the glamorous car-free life that we'd first imagined, but it was a very warm, welcoming place, and it started to feel like home.
Yeah, I mean, that feeling of being seen and accepted and supported, again, when you're newly arrived, I mean, it just matters more than I think people can even know.
So much, yeah. I think in the U.S., we often live very isolated lives, and village life here felt just completely the opposite. Very personal, grounded, very connected. Maybe a little like living in the 90s, we joke about sometimes. Yeah. You actually have to talk to people for things. You have to know people for things. You find out about events from the posters around town. Sometimes you have to snap off a little phone number at the bottom to remember someone to call. And
I mean, truth be told, looking back, after those first few weeks when we were in a nest and we first landed there, we had the conversation a couple times. We thought, okay, this is where we ended up. We're going to enjoy the countryside for the school year, but if we stay in France, we'll probably move back into a bigger city.
Oh, sure. I think there was no doubt at that point that we'd be leaving.
Yeah, in the beginning.
Yeah, but eventually the day came, it was time to go, and we didn't want to go. We did start looking for a house closer to a village center so that we could still walk most days to most things, and that's made a big difference.
Yeah. So the moral of this whole story is sometimes you don't end up where you planned in France, but you end up exactly where you're supposed to be. And I feel really grateful for that. I couldn't have planned it.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching.
A bientôt.